Early surprises, questions remain, could be one of those seasons. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by the Ultimate College Football HC. It's a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. Begin your coaching legacy to a day. All right, so very early impressions, early surprises. Questions remain. You know, what is the true App State? What is the true Georgia Southern? I would say Georgia Southern had an impressive bounce back. We'll see how App State bounces back. The schedule does not get any easier. And for a couple of teams, it could be one of those seasons, some in transition. So the biggest surprise right now it could be in college football. The biggest surprise right now in the Sun Belt is ULM. All right. They were slated 134th in numerous polls. If they weren't 134th, they were 133rd, and they are 2-0. It hasn't necessarily been pretty offensively. They've been outstanding defensively twice, holding both Jackson State and UAB under 100 yards rushing. They are among the biggest surprises, certainly the biggest surprise in the Sun Belt, and probably the biggest surprise in the country. All right. And all of a sudden, we went over it in yesterday's episode outside of Texas coming up, right? And go beat the Longhorns. Who knows what happens then? But all of a sudden, some of those games that didn't look winnable before we knew anything about the season, before we knew about the teams, we just presumed, if you want to say assumed, you can do that. But some of the teams that were really tough that we thought were going to be tough, are not quite as tough as we thought. Now, winning on the road is still hard in college football. All right. And ULM has had 2 home games so far. Nonetheless, you can't get any better than 2-0. And again, their defense has been fantastic. And if you're Bryant Vincent, you love the idea. I don't know if you love the idea, but you have something to harp on or coach. Harp would be a too strong word, but there's such room for growth offensively. Again, you'd be hard pressed to find another quarterback that hasn't thrown for 200 yards combined. That's 2-0. And that's where General Booty is. He's less than 200 yards in the air, and they are 2-0. So let me make sure that am I off on that? No. Now my mind is a little bit confused. I wasn't going to do that, but let's see. I just don't think he's. Now it's going to take me a minute to get to this. And I want to correct myself if it's wrong, but I don't think it is. Anyways, they are certainly the surprise team. Pleasantly surprised Coastal Carolina is a 2-0. All right. Ethan Vasco was the player of the week, week 1. They continue to put up the points against William and Mary. Maybe could work on that defense a little bit. But nonetheless, I don't know how much of a surprise that it is. The surprise was certainly how well they played against Jacksonville State, and maybe Jacksonville State is not all that good. All right, total offense. He's not in the top 10. Let me see. I got to go to passing efficiency. He's not there either. Is it not there? No. I got to go to. It's a great episode. So anyways, I guess we got a better way of doing this. So anyways, Coastal Carolina is, 2-0. and off to a good start. All right, General Booty, 104 yards in game 1. Did he have? I didn't think he had. Let me see here. 104. What did I say? Let me just go to General Booty. Box score. General Booty, 87 yards. Yeah, I was right. He's got 191 yards. All right, so I was right. Less than 200 yards. Nonetheless, that makes it for room for improvement. All right. Now to Coastal Carolina, 2-0. And looking good. All right. So far, so good. Especially could have a little bit of a letdown. They still put up 40 points. Played well enough. Good start for Coastal Carolina. I don't know how much of a surprise. Maybe not a surprise. Texas State with a nice bounce back performance after not looking good against Lamar in the second half. They came up big against their rival, hadn't beaten UTSA, and outside of the first 2 possessions, I mean, they throttled them. It was not a game. They get Arizona State on Thursday, nationally televised ball game, a chance for them to introduce themselves to the country. They are, I don't think they're favored in this game. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, about that one. The last time I looked at it, they were not favored, which I'm, again, a little shocked at that. I think Arizona State beat Mississippi State. Arizona State's 1.5-point favorites on the road. Arizona State wasn't good yet last year. They are 2-0 this year. They beat Wyoming pretty good. They beat Mississippi State by 7, 30-23. We'll get into that more for tomorrow's episode. We'll preview the matchup. But again, Texas State, not of surprise, but good first impressions. Cajuns, I mean, looking good. 2 methodical wins, 1 in the air and 1 on the ground. Again, the competition, not great by any stretch of the imagination. Grambling and Kennesaw State, both heavily favored, both times, covered both ball games. I don't know if they covered against Grambling. They may have just missed that one. But, it wasn't a game, 40-10. And then they destroyed Kennesaw State after a shaky first quarter, I guess. But that was about it. And they look good. And they were doing that without Draylen Washington, and they were doing that without Jax Harrington. So running back and offensive lineman. And, we'll see when they're back. We'll see if Draylen's back sooner than later. I thought Jax Harrington was going to be out for a little bit. And obviously they got a big ball game coming up in 2 weeks against Tulane, and then they go to Wake. Does appear, when you know it, that the Storm Francine hitting today, and hopefully everybody's safe, has moved towards Baton Rouge and maybe even more towards New Orleans. So hopefully everybody down there will stay safe. Would be odd if Tulane evacuated to Lafayette and practiced in the indoor if they wanted to. Let's see any other surprises. I think we still have questions remaining. I'm not sure about the surprises. I'm certainly surprised about James Madison. I don't know where that came from. That was a surprise, a lackluster effort by any stretch of the imagination. The one big surprise I have, I'm not surprised by Troy. I did pick them not to have a great season. I think I'm actually more disappointed in Old Dominion, because Old Dominion could very well be 2-0. We went over this a little bit yesterday. They're the disappointment and a surprise, because offensively, they just made mistake after mistake after mistake. Defensively, and they did it without Jason Henderson last ball game, they could have won both ball games. They could very easily have beaten South Carolina, who had an impressive win over Kentucky, and East Carolina. Yeah, they could have beaten East Carolina, and they just can't get out of their own way. So I'm disappointed in that they have to be a little bit of surprise on that end of the shtick. So we'll see if they can get that going a little bit in the right direction. All right. Questions remain. We'll do that next, because I think there are some teams that do have some questions remaining. I think there's also some teams that it could be one of those seasons. We will do that after I tell you about Ultimate GM and Gametime. Hey, Locked On Sunbelt fans. I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do. Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine being the head coach of the James Madison Dukes? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You are responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go and as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Sunbelt fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as we'll get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. And Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime picks out the filters of the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You get those Gametime picks. Curation makes it easier to save money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You get the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Honestly, I'm surprised I haven't done that before with the misspelling, but we got that. Locked On College. Okay. Questions remain for some teams. I do think I have questions about App State. All right. We thought that maybe they, played a little vanilla against East Tennessee State. And again, losing to Clemson does not, outside of being in the playoff, and as great as that is, and maybe the coaches will tell you, our goal is to play for a national championship. You need everything to line up for that. All right. I don't think that's a legitimate goal. It can be a goal, but part of the Sun Belt, you sort of need help with that. All right. Because if these teams aren't playing each other, and I don't know if they are, Memphis, Liberty, Boise State, whatever the case may be, Tulane, although they do have a loss, you need those teams to lose a little bit, and you need to win, and sometimes win impressively. So the idea that the season is over for a Georgia Southern or an App State is not true. Even Marshall and ODU, right? The ODU beat the Cajuns last year early, and that's big because it was a Sun Belt Conference ball game. No one's played a Sun Belt Conference game yet. So anything that you want to accomplish and legit accomplish for the Sun Belt is play for a Sun Belt championship and go to a good bowl game. That's legit. All right. The other stuff that we like to talk about, that 12-team playoff thing, that has to kind of wait until October, November, when now maybe, the sea parts and you can see where you are compared to everybody else and start campaigning for that effort. So again, just because, App got embarrassed, you got to bounce back, right? I thought Georgia Southern got embarrassed, and they did bounce back. They didn't bounce back with offense. They bounced back with defense. They got a couple of huge stops defensively, forcing a turnover and a 4th and 1. I like that. All right. You watch the film, put it behind you, move on. All right. You can't lose. And Ed Orgeron used to say this, unless Miles was really bad at it. You can't lose the same game twice. And that's what would happen every time LSU would lose to Alabama under Les Miles. They would lose the next game. And Ed Orgeron was like, we're not going to do that anymore. All right. We're put it behind you. You can't allow yourself to get caught up in what could have been. All right. Now, Georgia Southern, that could have been a little bit better ending against Boise State, right? You let it get away. So a couple plays here and there. The thing about App State, what we said is it wasn't a couple plays. It was a total breakdown. So maybe simplify some things and see where you are. And you can pull a Clemson, right? Clemson looked awful against Georgia. And all of a sudden they come back with a blowout win against App State. And they're right back in the fight. I don't think it's over for Clemson. If their only loss of the season is Georgia, they'll be right back in it. All right, so what are some of the questions that we still have here for the Sun Belt? So, see, I'm not sure it's fair to put Georgia State in there because we just don't know what we have with Georgia State at all. They actually played Georgia Tech tough. In their home opener, their season opener, not home opener, Georgia Tech's home opener. And they battled against the Mocks. I guess there was big questions, right? Because we don't know what to expect from Georgia State. I think, again, it's kind of like Auburn, where they're doing a good job off the field, and it takes a couple of years to translate that on the field. And when I mean that, recruiting-wise, Del McGee hasn't been the coach for a year yet. And so I think we do have some more questions for Georgia State, right? And we will see, how they get answered, basically. All right, because we just don't know. Marshall is one of those teams that, again, we're not going to go with Marshall yet. I am interested. I think James Madison has some questions to answer. Alonzo Barnett getting the start, the first 2 ball games, has played okay, right? They won the first ball game like 30-7 and then slept walk through the second ball game like everybody did. And so, again, they got a big ball game this weekend against Carolina. And so maybe it was as vanilla as possible, but they have some questions they need to answer. All right. On the other side, I think the other ones could be one of those years. All right. You want to put Southern Miss in this one? Questions remain. We found out Kentucky is not all that good. Tough spot for both teams with the constant delay. But, South Carolina, who didn't look particularly good against ODU, went into Lexington and kicked the Cats' butt. Southern Miss eventually got it going against Southeastern. But, they took it on the chin the first weekend against Tulane. All right. And we saw how good Tulane was against Kansas State. And we'll get up close and personal with them against the Cajuns in a couple of weeks. I did forget, and I apologize. Obviously, Arkansas State needs to be in, I don't think early surprises, but, nice starts, right? They've had 2. They're certainly battle tested, last second victory week 1 and then held on for dear life in week 2. And so as much as ODU could be 2-0, Arkansas State could be 0-2. And so that's a nice start. We'll see if they can be a little bit more explosive offensively. Kind of got shut down in the second half last week, or certainly in the fourth quarter. And they seem to be getting a little bit better defensively, but I think they've given up almost 800 yards of offense in the first 2 ball games. So we'll see if that can translate into something. All right, so let's take a timeout. We'll do the rest because I do think there's some teams here that, it just could be one of those seasons. It just could be one of those seasons that no matter what you do, it's going to be a struggle. That's what it might be. All right. We will do that after I tell you about FanDuel. You've heard us talk about FanDuel a lot, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. For those who could be, it could be one of those years. It kind of feels like that's where we are with South Alabama. Coaching turnover, players turnover. I think Gio Lopez is outstanding. Almost going to be to the point of, is he that good? And then is he going to leave? We don't want that by any stretch of the imagination. If South Alabama has one of those seasons. Also, it is outrageous. We're blaming this all on Major Applewhite. That is ridiculous after 2 ball games. All right. A lot of coaches left. The defensive coordinator left. Got to bring in a new offensive coordinator. Not only that, the head coach left. A lot of players left. I'm just not putting this on Major Applewhite. He had a starting quarterback, and then he got hurt, and the backup quarterback played okay. Had a shot, didn't convert at the end. So it still could be one of those years. We'll see maybe towards the end if we're shouldering the responsibility on Major Applewhite. I mean, it's his program, so that's where it belongs. I understand that. But there were extraneous factors on where South Alabama is. I mean, the talent turned over. It is what it is. If you can build something this year and you have Gio Lopez for this year and next year, and he's supposed to play, they get Northwestern State Thursday night. Usually turf toe doesn't heal that fast, but we'll see if he can play. And if he can, almost 500 yards of offense in his, second college start, something like that. He's a dynamic player. And if they can stop making the mistakes, they might be okay. Let me see what they had penalty-wise. That may have been the deal. Let me see what they did. 8 penalties, 86 yards. 7 penalties, 50 yards. So, a couple of 10-yard penalties, a couple holding calls, but a lot of those look to be procedure calls. They did have 1 turnover. They didn't rush the ball very effectively. Only 109 yards. So they are looking to affect. But they had some guys, retire from football on the offensive line. Again, there are some extenuating circumstances on where South Alabama is. It doesn't change the fact that he won't be responsible, but at the same time, it just could be one of those seasons. It might be one of those seasons for Troy. We had all that offensive turnover, but it may be issues on the defense. Goose Crowder might play this week. It could be just one of those seasons. All right, Jared Parker get his sea legs under him, so to speak. I think he'll do a good job eventually, but it may have been a tall task trying to replace what they needed to on offense and on defense. So it could be one of those seasons for Troy. And see, it may be that way for Marshall too. It may be that way for Marshall. When you're talking about Luke Creasy being the quarterback, well, not really, but it is funny that Charles Huff mentions the beat writer as not a potential quarterback, but he's saying it's not the quarterback's fault because the receivers are dropping the footballs, right? That was what Charles Huff was saying. Luke could be throwing the footballs, and if the receivers drop it, it's still 2nd and 10. So you got to complete the passes, is what Huff was saying. It could be one of those seasons for Huff and Marshall. We'll see where that lands him. Again, when you don't have that quarterback, and Cam Fancher didn't work out, I'm not sure how well it's working out at FAU. I think they took it on the chin against Army. When you don't land that quarterback, it's tough. That's why South Alabama has something to build on, because it appears they do have that quarterback. And if you can figure out the running game, and that may have to do with Gio not being in there, and play that defense a little bit better, you might be okay. But certainly you're going to look good next season. That's for sure. If they all come back. All right. So let's see. I think we did everybody. Coastal has been impressive. I do have questions about James Madison. We'll see if App State bounces back from what was an ugly loss. We were impressed with Georgia Southern bouncing back against Nevada. Questions remain for Georgia State because we just don't know what to expect at all. Maybe one of those seasons for Marshall. And Old Dominion is definitely an early surprise. Very disappointing in their offense thus far, because the defense has played well enough to win. Arkansas State, I think it's a pleasant surprise because they've had 2 close wins. And that was kind of what we were looking for. Win when maybe you don't play well for, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and do it at the end of the ball game. And they've done that now twice. Cajuns, I think they were expected to be 2-0. And they are 2-0, and they've done it both in the air and on the ground in different ball games. They get a week off as they prepare for Tulane. Texas State with a bounce back, impressive win after a shaky victory against Lamar. They look good against UTSA. They get Arizona State on Thursday. ULM has been nothing but outstanding. Again, not only the biggest surprise in the Sun Belt, but probably the biggest surprise in the nation. We'll see what they look like against Texas. I guess it could be, again, do we have questions with Southern Miss, or do they, is it going to be one of those years because Tay Rodemaker's got to play better? I mean, the quarterback play has to be better, and that's where it starts. If the quarterback can't play, and it doesn't matter if it's in the Sun Belt, Southern Miss, or in the pros with the Browns, right? If the quarterback can't lead your team, it's an issue. That's why the ULM thing looks so fascinating, because General Booty has not played particularly well. He's played well enough to win, but that defense has really showed up. So we'll see if he can get a little bit better as the season rolls on. Again, it could be one of those seasons for South Alabama and Troy. Again, everybody is, I know they, on the positive side, undefeated in the Sun Belt, but obviously they are also winless. One could look at it that way. But it kind of is the preseason, right? The games that they play out of conference, it kind of is, in this case, the preseason for Sun Belt teams, because I think the legit goal for anybody and everybody is to contend for a Sun Belt championship and go to a good bowl game. There's some teams that have that potential, whether it was App State, Texas State, maybe the Cajuns. You got James Madison, Coastal's player in North Carolina. If you do run the table, I can't lose a game. It's going to be tough if you lose a game. If you run the table, maybe you do find yourself in the playoff. But that's a tall task, and you may need help from somebody else to lose. Now, everyone's goals should still be in front of them, and I believe that. I sincerely believe that. Some may have loftier goals, but again, that's way down the road for these teams. Way down the road. All right, we will come back. We are... first of all, thanks. We're almost at 1,440 subscribers. That's fantastic. Really busy week. My schedule is a little odd on Thursday. I have the morning off, but working late. So I'm actually going to try and record 2 episodes, at least one on Wednesday, to preview Thursday's action, and then maybe actually record the Thursday one in the morning. So if I miss news on Thursday evening, it is Bourbon Fest down here in Kentucky, and it's going to be a long weekend, but it's going to be a lot of fun. But we'll still get them out. Coaches, it didn't work out. Scheduling conflicts, it happens. We will try to get, we'll try to put the lockdown signal out again, and then see if we can get some coaches to join us, and if not players. All right. I always have Tuesdays off, so I don't know if that's an issue for people. And just the way the schedule's worked out, I think 2 weeks in a row, I'm working like 6 days a week. So that's okay. I don't mind it. All right. It's a lot of fun. So appreciate it. We're going to get to 1,450 here very quickly, and hopefully we will see 1,500 subscribers looks like by the end of the month. So we are about a month behind. It'd be nice if it was by the end of the week, but that may be pushing it. All right. Want to thank everybody for listening. Appreciate your support. Appreciate you supporting the channel. Looking forward to this weekend's ball games. They do start on Thursday night. It is South Alabama, Northwestern State, and Texas State hosting Arizona State. So good shot for the Bobcats to be impressive, and maybe a shot for South Alabama to get that first win. All right. Thanks again for tuning in. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.